Members, we have a quorum, and it is the appointed time. Let me call the meeting to order. First of all, election of the chairman. We are having a subcommittee to scrutinize the Air Navigation Hong Kong Order 1995 Amendment of Schedule 16 Order 2013 and Dangerous Goods Consignment by Air Safety Regulations Amendment of Schedule Order 2013. Now we need to elect a chairman of this subcommittee. Can I have a nomination, please? Valid nominations must be made orally by a member and must be seconded by at least one member orally. Can I have nominations, please? Mr. Andrew Leung. I nominate Mr. Chen Kam Lam. Any seconder? Mr. Yik Chi Ming. I accept nomination. Do we need a deputy chairman? No. Okay. We will call the meeting to order now, and let us invite the administration team to come in.
嗰啲技術細則嗰啲嚇，好啊，哦 ，table 已經有啦，係嘛？哦，好啊。
主席，其實我哋之前睇咧嗰啲修訂咧，如果準望廢除1.1.3代以1.1咧，唔知啲內容係咩，咁要提過，所以要求政府提供。
叫佢講係啦。出席呢一次小組委。
Attending this subcommittee from the administration, we have Mrs. Sharon Yip, Deputy Secretary for Transport and Housing, Mr. Desmond Wu, AS for Transport and Housing, Ms. Priscilla Lam Wai Shan, Assistant Director General of Civil Aviation, and Government Counsel, Ms. Queenie Wu Chung Yi. We also have Ms. Amy Poon, Senior Safety Officer from Civil Aviation Department, as well as Mr. Raymond Ng Chi On, Chief Safety Officer of the Civil Aviation Department. Welcome to you all. DS, if you have settled down, please take us through the paper, and then we will do clause-by-clause scrutiny of the orders. Thank you, Chairman. Let me introduce the background to the amendment this time around. The ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, makes regulations from time to time, and it proposes amendments from time to time as well. China, the PRC, is a state party to the ICAO, and that is why Hong Kong will always abide by the regulations made by the ICAO. This time around, the ICAO released a set of technical instructions with regard to the safe transport of dangerous goods by air, to regulate the transport of dangerous goods by air. The technical instructions, or TI, are updated every 2 years and are also published once every 2 years. We have looked at the latest version of the TI, which is for 2013 to 2014. In December 2012, the set of requirements were published by the ICAO. Most of these have to do with technical and textual amendments. I will now take you through the main amendments. There are 3 aspects. Number 1, that the airport operators, within the limited time, have to furnish the commander and also aircraft operators working on ground information about DG being transferred by air. This is because in case of emergencies, the information will be flowed to rescue response teams in good time. Secondly, there is requirement of the aircraft operators. If they should refuse to accept any DG on board, they have to keep the relevant papers, documents, and also their copies for not less than 3 months. The purpose is to enhance oversight responsibilities, and also this will highlight potential areas for intensive training of air cargo industry personnel. The third aspect is about helicopters, that helicopter operators are required to take into consideration various factors when DG is for open external carriage or is carried as suspended low. And these factors are packaging and also protection of packaging from adverse weather and also the danger of static discharge upon landing or release of the loads. The Air Navigation Hong Kong Order 1995 Amendment of Schedule 16 Order 2013 has the main purpose to implement the new TIs. And the Dangerous Goods Consignment by Air Safety Regulations Amendment of Schedule Order 2013 has as its main purpose to update the relevant orders so that we can incorporate the latest set of TIs released by the ICAO. The Director General of Civil Aviation has already consulted the Board of Airline Representatives in Hong Kong, the 2 Hong Kong helicopter operators, Government Flying Service, and the Technical Subcommittee of the Aviation Development Advisory Committee, who are stakeholders. They generally support the proposed amendments. And also, on the 24th of June this year, we consulted the Legislative Council Panel on Economic Development. The panel generally supported the proposed amendments. Now, we welcome questions or comments from members, please. Thank you, Chairman. Members, any questions? Mr. Leung, Chairman. The document 9284 has just been distributed. We did not have time to go through it. I think these are the TIs from the ICAO.
On Chapter 1, provision for dangerous goods carried by passengers or crew, is there something that we should be concerned about here? For anything that we cannot bring up to flights, can you please highlight to us what they are? I'd like to know or clarify your question. Are you talking about the passengers? Yes. In the past, as a passenger, what I can bring up onto a flight, are there any changes to that list? Is there anything I cannot now bring onto the flight? Well, actually, there is a part in this document which says that the carriers are to inform their passengers as to what can or cannot be put into the brought onto the flight as carry-on luggage, etc. And in fact, for the instructions this time, there had been new amendments, and a form or table is used so that the carriers are very clear as to what can be brought onto the flight. In fact, there are no major changes at all, but it is just by way of setting them out for clarity's sake. Yes, Mr. Ng, I would like to supplement. We are talking about the Section 8. There is a Table 8.1, which talks about the goods that the passenger can bring onto the flight. For example, thermometers that can be brought onto the flight, but it will have to be within a protective container. I'm looking at Table 8.1. There are a number of examples listed there, and the amendment, there's one addition, and that is small air cylinders. These small air cylinders are usually used by the divers and for diving, and this is already this is a new item under 8.1. So are you talking about oxygen cylinders? Well, actually, not oxygen, but rather, if you look at 8.1, 8.17, it is a small air cylinder that is non-toxic and non-flammable. As for the thermometer, you're talking about the traditional thermometers that we use for taking body temperatures? Because a lot of the thermometers nowadays are electronic. No, we're talking about mercury-based thermometers, the traditional ones, really. Is that clear, Mr. Yik? Just to follow up on the list, nothing's been taken away. There's just one item that's been added, and that is the small air cylinders. Is that right? Are there anything else that are not allowed on the flights? Well, actually, every 2 years there will be a revision. And there may be some technical changes every time. As for this round, the TI, in certain batteries, there are also new packaging instructions for such batteries. Lithium, that's for lithium batteries. And in fact, for International Air Transport Association, they also have a dangerous goods regulation, and in January of 2013, it has already come into effect. And the IATA dangerous goods records is basically the same. They are the same with the TI here. So for lithium batteries, transport, new requirements, in fact, that has already come into place and is actually being followed as early as January 2013. So for this TI, there are certain technical changes, lithium battery being one, but the point is the industry is already honoring that, is already putting it into practice. When you say industry, you mean the freight or the air transport industry? Yes. Yes, I remember there was a time when the lithium batteries had to be put separately and into containers. Now, when you talk about the industry, for the industry of manufacturers, in fact, it is a very expensive thing to do, to put the batteries into a separate place or into a container separate from the device. Such as watches. Well, we do not have any such amendments concerning watches. Then what about the packaging requirements for lithium batteries, please? What is the requirement? My colleague will supplement. Well, actually, there are no major changes to the requirements on packaging, except for the exceptional lithium batteries. For every pack that the lithium batteries are to be contained, there is a weight limit. This is to promote safety. The lower the weight of batteries in a package, a single package, the safer it is. So that is the main amendment, if you will. No major amendments at all. Mr. Yu? Well, interestingly, follow up on Mr. Leung's point, I have to say this is the first time I come across this. I was reading the documents last night, and it did not come to my attention that I should pay attention to these points. The government is telling us that there had been certain changes, but that was not apparent to me when I read the documents. Now, you are saying that the pilot will have to be informed at the point when the aircraft is moving on its own power. But I have to say the points just now that were raised, they were not clear to me at all if Mr. Leung hadn't brought them up just now. Now, if for future reference, for any such additions or taken away from the list, would you please highlight that to us? I'm asking the administration because it would affect the industry. Yes, that's for future reference. For the TI, because it has already come into effect in January of 2013, and we have at the early part of the year Actually, at the end of 2012, we have already uploaded the highlights and the major amendments of the 2013-2014 new TI. We have uploaded that onto our website for reference of the industry, and we would actually do this once every 2 years. That is not part of the subsidiary law, but no, not at all, but it is just that we saw certain differences and amendments in the new TI, and we have therefore collected them, and we have put them into a table and put them into the website. So you asked the Civil Aviation Department's website. So they will be following, they will be reading from the website and following up on their own. Well, we also have seminars for the industry's benefit to tell them about the new packaging requirements for lithium batteries in the TI 2013-14. Yes, we have done that as well as uploading onto the website. Yes, for the transfer documents, the two orders, well, one specifies 3 months, the other 6. I would like to know why there is this difference, such a big difference. Why is it not 6 months consistently? So wouldn't it be easier for the industry to comply? Yes. The IATA specifies no less than 3 months. That is their specification. But for certain dangerous goods documents, we have already requested for at least 6 months retention. And therefore, we have not in this round changed to the IATA's 3 months requirement, but rather we have kept it in consistence with our existing ordinance, i.e. 6 months retention. Any other questions, members? If not, we go clause by clause, shall we? Let us look at the marked up copy. Mr. Yik, please. I have a question. I have another question that I'm chairing upstairs, and this meeting was added before I committed to that meeting. I'm sorry you cannot leave. I'm sorry you cannot leave because we are only 3 here. If you left the room, we won't have a quorum. So shall we speed up the process as much as possible? Would the administration please bring us through the marked up copy? Let us go clause by clause. Mrs. Ip, are you? Oh, Mr. Ng. Air Navigation Hong Kong Order 1995. There is only the English version. Air Navigation Hong Kong Order 1995, Schedule 16 amendments. This will be gazetted at a certain date and commencement at a certain date by the Civil Aviation Commissioner. And here we have the definition and interpretation, ground personnel for flight operations. This is a new addition. There is none such at present. This is a new addition, and this is because under TI 4.1.1b, the ground personnel for flight operation will have to be provided with the information concerning dangerous goods. At present, the information will be provided to the flight pilot. And because of this mention, we have added the definition here. Any questions, members? No? We continue. The next page, please. States concerned. The Chapter 113 had been changed to 1.1. In the TI, there are certain new states concerned interpretations and definitions, and we have therefore changed the mention of states concerned from Chapter 113 to 11. And technical instructions, instead of 2011-2012 version, it is now the 2013-2014 version, and therefore this change. And the bottom of the next page of a type specified in Chapter 114 changed to 115. This basically specifies the dangerous goods which are not applicable within this technical instructions, because the chapter number is different now. Therefore, we have changed accordingly the chapter number. And the next amendment, Chapter 1.1.2 had been changed to Table -1. Basically, this describes the kind of goods that passengers are able to bring onto the flight. In the previous T1, Chapter 1.1.2 is used for the description of these goods, but the new version provides a table listing out these items, in Table 8 in particular.
The next one. This has to do with a new requirement in the TI, and that is if the aircraft operator refuses certain DG, he has to keep certain documents and also the acceptance list for at least 6 months. For at least 3 months. That is the requirement under the TI. In this section, we would put in the same requirement, and we like to highlight that in terms of the period for keeping the documents, it will be not less than 6 months. Okay. Clause 7, we will add in bracket 3 to reflect a new requirement in the TI, and that is for the helicopter operator to ensure that if dangerous goods are carried or loaded for carriage by or suspended from the helicopter, there should be some safety considerations, and that is why this is also inserted into our law. No questions? Carry on. The next one, in the TI, there is a new requirement that the operator of an aircraft must, not later than when the aircraft moves under its own power, provide information about DG to the commander, so that the commander has more time to inspect the DG on flight. So we have put in the same clause in the law, but not later than when the aircraft moves under its own power. The next one. Again, a new requirement in the TI that the aircraft operator also has to provide information to ground personnel for flight operations. This is about copies of information on DG, so we add in the mention of ground personnel. Yes, okay. The next one. In Part 7 of the TI, there is mention of the type of information to be supplied to the commander. That is in Chapter 4. In the TI now, there is the addition of information on lithium batteries, the serial number, the total amount, etc. To comply with that new paragraph, the enumeration of paragraph numbers has been changed. So we have changed the paragraphs in our law accordingly. Next one. In the TI, there is this new requirement whereby the aircraft operator has to ensure that information is readily accessible to ground personnel until the aircraft has landed at the aerodrome of intended destination. The same requirement is now added to our law. Next one. This has to do with changing the words Chapter 1.1.2 to Table 8-1. Table 8-1 is about goods that can be carried on board by passengers. The last one. Under the requirement of authorized persons like CAD personnel, aircraft operators should provide copies of information on the transport of DG. The commander of the flight would have a copy, and ground staff will also have a copy now. And we are adding in the mention of ground personnel for flight operations. That's all for amendments to the air navigation DG regulations schedule. No questions? Okay. We have the English version here, but not the Chinese version. I'd like to ask the DOJ, Ms. Wu, is it because you did not have time to do the translation? Thank you, Chairman. This piece of subsidiary legislation was made before the reunification, but after the reunification, because of the tightness of time, we only passed the English version. And according to the Official Languages Ordinance, if it is a piece of subsidiary legislation, we can do without the Chinese version. I understand government departments are working on a Chinese version. In other words, you are working on one? Yes. We have been working on bilingual legislation for a number of years, but if we still do not have the Chinese version, perhaps we need to explain why that is so. The legal advisor, any questions on the order? Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the question raised by the Chairman, and that is the Chinese version, I have some information. Last time, amendments were made in 2011, and we wrote to the administration about the same issue. The reply was that the drafting of the Chinese version had started. That was what we were told back in 2011 on the 2nd of November. Okay. Maybe you had a lot to do, so you still have not completed the Chinese version, so carry on. Now let us look at the DG Consignment by Air Safety Regulations schedule. Who will take us through the amendments? Mr. Ng? Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is the Dangerous Goods Consignment by Air Safety Regulations. The DG CA will gazette the notice of commencement. There are 6 amendments here. Number 1, Part 1. The edition is changed from 2011-2012 to 2013-2014. Then Part 2. This is about Regulation 41B. We would delete Chapter 2.4 of Part 1 and because the latest version of the TI, in that version, Chapter 2.4 of Part 1 has to do with Chapter 5 of Part 3 that it has to be followed and complied with. So you can see here that Under Regulation 41B, we already mentioned Part 3, so we believe we can delete Chapter 2.4 of Part 1. Then Regulation 41C, more or less the same situation. We propose to delete Chapter 2.4 of Part 1 for the same reason. And we are adding in Chapters 4 and 5 of Part 3. Regulation 41D, a similar situation. We would add in Chapter 5 of Part 3. And then Regulation 41E. In the latest version of the TI, after J, there is the addition of paragraph K, which has to do with the separation of DG and non-DG when they are handed to aircraft operators. So we have to add in the word K here. And then 1.2, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, etc., those have not been changed. But with regard to 4.1.5.6.4, this has been changed to 4.1.5.7.4. This is the enumeration of a paragraph. We just follow the latest version of the TI. Okay. The last one. Regulation 42B. 1.1.4 is replaced by 1.1.5, and it explains where the TI will not apply. So we are making a complementary amendment. That's all for the amendments of this order. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Any questions, members? Legal Advisor. Thank you, Chairman. There is one point for members' consideration, please, as Mr. Andrew Leung and Mr. Frankie Yik mentioned. If we only look at the Gazette and also the paper submitted by the administration before the meeting, we may not be able to know all the relevant amendments. Therefore, we have requested the administration to provide the papers that were tabled only today. Members can consider that in future, if relevant amendments are proposed, such details should be attached to the legislative brief. And as the CAD said, if a table has been uploaded to the website of the CAD to give the gist of the amendments, then perhaps members can consider whether you should request the administration to provide more detailed information in the legislative brief for members' consideration. Okay, I think members will agree that we, of course, have to follow the international requirements and bring in amendments to our laws. However, if there are details, technical instructions, etc., in the code of practice, etc., even if it is not part of the orders themselves, they are nevertheless related and relevant. So I believe the information should be supplied in future. All right? Okay, any other questions, members? If not, we have completed our scrutiny of the two orders. And let us take a look at the timetable. If we want to extend the scrutiny period, I think we have to, because we have already passed the time. We will have the scrutiny until later. And on the 18th of December, we need to move a motion to extend the scrutiny period. And if you want to move an amendment, the latest date for giving notice is the 11th of December. And we will extend the scrutiny period to the 8th of January 2014. Okay, Members. Right. This Friday, we are going to make an oral report to the House Committee. And members, please note that there will be no House Committee meetings on 2 ensuing Fridays. And as we said, on the 18th of December, we are going to apply for an extension, and the scrutiny period will be extended to the 8th of January. All right? I don't think we need to consult the public if members have no questions. The two orders have been scrutinized. If there are no other questions, the meeting is ended. Thank you.